if you're working towards sounding more natural in English.
Right. And really understanding folks when they speak quickly.
Exactly. It's about unlocking those native English expressions and digging into some powerful learning techniques, too.
Yeah, we've spent a good bit of time with a fantastic collection of source material articles, lesson transcripts, even analyses of real-world clips.
Yeah, featuring everyday speakers, famous people, even a former president was in there.
That's right. So our mission here is to really go deep into these materials.
And pull out those absolute golden nuggets. The key vocabulary, the subtle pronunciation shifts, grammar tips, and those standout learning methods.
Basically give you a shortcut, help you sound more natural and understand English as it's actually spoken without getting overwhelmed.
Think of this as your accelerated guide. We've kind of distilled the essential bits so you don't have to sift through everything yourself.
Yeah, we're highlighting what really seems to matter for building that fluency and, importantly, confidence.
We're going to unpack specific idioms, phrasal verbs you'll hear constantly, reveal how sounds kind of mysteriously change when natives connect words.
Uh-huh. Connected speech stuff.
Exactly. And share powerful methods, like shadowing, that can seriously boost your ability to speak and understand.
The goal is definitely actionable knowledge. We want you to walk away with concrete things you can use, like right away.
Things you can connect to your own language goals. Ready to get into it?
Let's do it.
Okay, so the first really powerful technique that jumped out, it was highlighted everywhere, is something called shadowing.
Ah, shadowing, yeah.
What exactly is this, and why is it apparently so effective?
Well, conceptually, it's pretty simple, but yeah, incredibly powerful. You listen to a native English speaker, and almost immediately, like right after them, you repeat exactly what they say.
Like an echo.
Exactly like an echo, in real time.
So you're not just passively listening, you're actively producing the sounds, almost as you hear them.
Precisely. And what makes it so effective, is that it trains your mouth and your brain together simultaneously.
Oh, okay.
So it improves not just pronunciation, though, that's a big one, but also the rhythm, the intonation, the speed of your speech.
The musicality of it.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. You're basically building muscle memory for English sounds and patterns.
Which helps you connect sounds with meaning faster, right? That seems crucial for keeping up in real conversations.
Absolutely vital. It bridges that gap, between just understanding and actually producing language at a natural speed.
It really does sound like a workout for your voice.
That's exactly how it's often described, like going to the gym for your voice. And like any workout, the more you do it,
The easier it gets.
the more effortless speaking becomes. And the material we looked at, it gives a fantastic roadmap on how to practice, emphasizing, really, starting small.
Which makes total sense. Don't try to shadow like a complex news report on day one.
Exactly. No, begin with short phrases, common sentences, things you'd actually use in daily life. The initial focus isn't perfection.
Right.
It's about matching the sound, the rhythm, the tone. And the key, the absolute non-negotiable part, is speaking out loud. You have to make the sounds.
And the examples provided in the sources were really concrete and helpful, like shadowing daily routines. Simple stuff like, I wake up at 7, I brush my teeth.
I make a cup of tea. Things you genuinely say or could say.
Right. And they also suggest adding emotion and tone, so not just robotically repeating.
No, definitely not. Try saying, my morning was really calm today, or maybe, I'm so excited about this weekend, with real feeling.
Because that's such a huge part of sounding natural, isn't it? The emotion, the intonation behind the words.
Huge. It's not just sounds, it's conveying meaning, attitude, feeling. That's language.
So what other kinds of things did they suggest shadowing?
Well, other great examples included shadowing short stories about simple experiences, like maybe retelling a quick story about a trip to the grocery store or visiting a cousin.
So you're practicing slightly longer chunks of speech.
Exactly. Processing and producing a bit more language at once. Or practicing common questions and answers.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Basic interactions, like, how are you today? I'm doing well. Or what time is it now? It's 10:30. Even, where are you going? To the library.
Builds that quick responsibility for conversation.
Yes, basic, but totally essential. They also suggested imagining situations and doing some role-playing.
Oh, okay. Like practicing phrases you'd need where?
At a restaurant, maybe. I'd like a table. Could I see the menu? Could I have the check?
Or at a grocery store. Do you have fresh apples?
Yeah.
How much is the total?
Can I pay with cash? Yeah. Or even something more structured like a job interview, practicing common questions and your potential answers.
That's quite specific.
It shows the range. They even broke it down further, like practicing just the verb to be in basic patterns. I am happy you are my friend. Simple structures to nail the rhythm.
Or doing reflection-style shadowing. What's
Right.
that?
Sort of like thinking out loud, shadowing sentences like, I believe that learning a language takes time, or I am not perfect, but I am progressing.
Practicing expressing more complex thoughts.
Exactly. Or opinions. I think learning English is exciting. In my opinion, practice is more important than perfection.
Phone conversations, too.
Yep. Hello, this is Natasha speaking. How have you been? Practicing those specific greetings and exchanges.
Future tense practice, giving directions.
Mm.
It seems like you can apply shadowing to almost anything.
Pretty much anything you hear or want to practice saying. The variety of examples really shows its flexibility.
That's a really comprehensive set of ideas. It definitely makes shadowing feel like a fundamental technique, something core to building that speaking muscle and the confidence to actually use it.
It's definitely presented that way, as
Yeah.
a key practice. And it's not just about sounding good in isolation. It's about feeling more comfortable, more able to jump into spontaneous conversation.
Okay, so we've covered a powerful technique for how to speak, how to practice the sounds and rhythm. Now let's shift gears a bit to what to say.
Right. The actual words and phrases.
The material we explored was absolutely packed with common expressions, those idioms, phrasal verbs that native speakers seem to use constantly, sometimes without even thinking about it.
Yes, this is where you get those really practical vocabulary tools. Let's start with a great one for paying attention.
You mean keep one's eyes peeled for?
That's the one. A great idiom. It just means stay alert, watch carefully for something specific.
So you might say, keep your eyes peeled for the exit sign.
Exactly. Or we need to keep our eyes peeled for the client when they arrive. Or even more generally, keep your eyes peeled for any interesting opportunities.
So you're actively looking, watching out. Got it. And grammar-wise.
Usually followed by the preposition for, then the noun or pronoun you're watching for. And remember to conjugate he keeps his eyes peeled, she kept her eyes peeled.
And the possessive has to match the subject.
Yeah.
She, her, you.
Right, and if you're just telling someone directly, it's the imperative, keep your eyes peeled.
Simple enough. Okay, another one that came up a lot for confirming plans.
Ah, yes. Are we still on for?
Super common, right? Especially socially. You're just checking if a plan is still happening, usually pretty close to the time. Are we still on for tonight?
Or are we still on for lunch tomorrow? You use for plus the plan, which might be a noun like lunch, or just a time reference like tonight or tomorrow.
Are we still on for studying English tomorrow? You could use for that too.
Absolutely. And the reply is usually simple,
Yeah,
right?
like yep, or absolutely, or sure are.
Concise. Okay, next up, the adjective walkable.
Meaning something is close enough to walk to comfortably? Or an area itself is easy to walk around in?
Both, actually. You use it with the verb to be. So, is the museum walkable from the hotel?
Or you could ask, what's walkable around here? Meaning, what shops or restaurants can we easily get to on foot?
Exactly. So it can describe a specific destination or a whole area like a neighborhood or city. Everyone loves how walkable downtown is.
Right. And the negative is just not walkable, or isn't walkable. Pretty straightforward.
Simple but useful. Okay, how about to head out?
Ah, yes. A really common phrasal verb. Means to leave a place, basically, or start a journey.
That's it. Like, we should probably head out soon if we want to beat the traffic.
Beat the traffic just means avoid the worst of it, get ahead of it.
Right. And pronunciation-wise, listen for how head out often links together. That sound connects.
Sounds more like head out.
Yeah, that's common. You can use it in the present continuous, too. What time are you planning on heading out? Or I'm heading out around 6:30.
And that phrase, to beat the traffic, you mentioned it's a purpose clause, like in order to.
Exactly. It explains why you're heading out. Just a little grammar aside, the sources noted, while you can use that to plus verb phrase for purpose, you wouldn't usually start a general state sentence with just the infinitive like that. Yeah. You'd use the gerund, the ing form. So not to beat the traffic is hard, but beating the traffic is always a challenge. Small point, but good to know.
Okay, noted. Right, next one. To get some shut-eye. Sounds informal.
It is. It just means to get some sleep, often implying a short period, like a nap, but not always. I really need to get some shut-eye before my presentation tomorrow.
And shut-eye is only a noun, right? You always use get with it.
Correct, you get shut-eye. He managed to get a little shut-eye on the plane. Or, let's try to get some shut-eye on our break.
And there's that pronunciation linking again, isn't there? Get a little becomes get to little.
Yes, and shut-eye often sounds like shut-eye because that T between vowels softens to a quick D sound. It happens all the time.
You can use prepositions like on or during a break or a trip.
Right. Get some shut-eye on the train, get some shut-eye during the layover, and one source even humorously tied it back to actual sleep health.
Huh. Language connecting to real life. Okay, moving on. To dish out. This sounds a bit negative.
It usually is. It means to criticize someone, often quite strongly or freely. Wow, the boss really dished it out to the sales team at the meeting.
You often hear dish it out, don't you? Where it stands for the criticism.
Exactly. And that leads to the very common expression. You can dish it out, but you can't take it.
Meaning you're happy to criticize others, but you get upset or defensive if someone criticizes you back.
Precisely. It describes that kind of person. Very common phrase. Okay, next. To muddle through.
This one sounds like figuring things out as you go. Doing something without a clear plan, maybe accidentally achieving it.
That's a great way to put it. I'd never baked that cake before, but I somehow muddled through.
The result could be good, or it could be a miss. Right.
Yeah.
The point is the lack of clear method.
Exactly. You just kind of navigated it, maybe with a bit of luck, maybe not.
Yeah.
Okay, how about to nerd out on?
Ooh, I like this one. It's informal, means getting really enthusiastic and talking in great detail about a specific topic, probably more than most people care to hear.
Laughs. Yeah, pretty much. My brother can nerd out on old video games for hours. Or she loves to nerd out on different types of coffee beans.
So you use the preposition on plus the topic you're obsessing over.
Got it. Okay. To stick around.
Super common phrasal verb. Just means to stay somewhere, remain in a place for a while, right?
Exactly. I think I'll stick around after the meeting to chat. Or why don't you stick around until the rain stops?
Simple, versatile.
Okay.
To wash up.
This generally means to clean your hands and odor face. Very common before meals. Kids, go wash up for dinner.
Or just, I need to wash up quickly before we leave.
Right. And it can specifically refer to washing your face. Like someone might say they need to wash up before bed, meaning maybe taking off makeup.
Okay. Similar but different. To lock up.
This means to securely close and lock all the doors and windows of a place, like a house or a shop. It's often used at the end of the day or before leaving.
So it's basically another way of saying lock everything securely.
Pretty much. Don't forget to lock up the house before you go to bed. Or who's responsible for locking up the office tonight?
Got it. Okay. To yammer on. Sounds annoying.
It usually implies that. It means to talk continuously about something, often in a boring or irritating way. He just yammered on and on about his problems.
And one of the examples used ran into, which is another useful phrase meaning met unexpectedly. I ran into my neighbor and she yammered on for ages.
Yes, good catch. Two useful phrases there. Okay, to mouth off, definitely negative. Yeah, this means speaking disrespectfully, maybe angrily or rudely, especially to someone in authority. The source mentioned kids or teenagers mouthing off to their parents.
And the consequence might be getting grounded.
Exactly. And obviously, as an adult, you probably shouldn't mouth off to your boss or, a police officer. Not advisable.
Definitely not. Okay, to max out.
This means to reach the absolute limit of something, often used with credit cards. I completely maxed out my credit card on that vacation.
Meaning you spend right up to the spending limit, like $10,000 if that was the limit.
Correct. But it can apply to other things, too. The concert venue was maxed out. They couldn't sell any more tickets. Capacity limit.
Okay. And finally, to load up on.
This means to get or consume a large quantity of something, usually for a specific purpose or in preparation for something.
Like the classic example, athletes often load up on carbs before a big race.
Right. Or maybe before a storm, people loaded up on batteries and water. Or just for fun, we loaded up on popcorn and candy for the movie.
You use the preposition on with the thing you're getting a lot of.
Exactly. So that collection really gives you a feel for how native speakers use these phrasal verbs and idioms naturally.
It really highlights how important it is to learn these as whole chunks, doesn't it? And not just the individual words. Understanding these patterns makes such a difference.
Absolutely. It's the difference between just knowing vocabulary lists and actually knowing how the language works in practice.
So we've covered a key learning technique, shadowing, and explored a bunch of really useful vocabulary chunks. But even if you know the words, listening to native speakers, especially when they talk fast, it can still sound like a blur.
Oh, yes. This is where understanding pronunciation and connected speech really comes in. It's like unlocking another layer.
The sources really dug into this, didn't they? How native speakers often don't say every single sound clearly. They reduce words, link them together.
Drop sounds entirely sometimes. It's what makes speech flow naturally and quickly, but yeah, it's a huge hurdle for learners if you're expecting dictionary pronunciation.
It feels like a kind of secret code sometimes. Like how unstressed words, the small grammar words, often get squished.
Totally. Year often sounds like year. For becomes fur. To can just be a quick to sound, like I have to go.
Of reducing to or of,
Uh-huh.
and becoming just in like rock and roll.
Then becoming tell them I'll be late. Even but can lose that final to sound, especially before a consonant sounding like an all right can compress right down to right.
These tiny changes happen constantly, and they really add up, making it hard to parse if you're listening for the full sounds.
They really do. And then layered on top of that is linking where the end sound of one word flows right into the beginning sound of the next.
This makes words run together, doesn't it? Like the example, your eyes sounding like your rise, because that R sound connects.
Exactly. Or still on, that L sound links across. Head out, we mentioned. Sounds like head out as the D links.
Get a little, that T turns into a soft D sound between vowels and links up,
Yeah.
sounding like get a little.
That soft D or flap T is super common. Shut-eye becoming shut-eye is another perfect example.
The sources gave loads of examples,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Got rid of often sounds like got rid of, or even got rid could have, should have, would have, almost always. Reduce and link, could have, should have, would have.
And it's crucial to remember you write could have, but you often hear could have.
Absolutely crucial distinction. Writing versus speaking. Other linking examples they showed. Some of the becoming, some of these, or some of the do it, often gets a little W sound linking the vowels. Do it. Reflect on, work on the consonant, link smoothly to the vowel.
And that soft D or flap T sound we mentioned, it's not just in linking, but inside words like little, and it's why got to becomes gotta and want to becomes wanna.
Exactly. Mastering that sound really helps with comprehension, and beyond reductions and linking, sometimes sounds just disappear.
Especially final consonants.
Often, yeah. The final T in don't or can't before another consonant might vanish. The K in make or milk might be very soft or dropped. The T in that or but.
And they mentioned the dark L sound too, like in rule or fulfill.
Yeah, especially fulfilled, that first L can sometimes be almost swallowed. These aren't strict rules, but very common patterns.
Understanding these patterns, the reductions, the linking, the dropped sounds, feels like getting the key to understanding faster, more natural speech.
It really is. The sources had specific listening exercises, breaking down sentences from clips, showing exactly where these things happen.
Which loops back perfectly to shadowing. Because shadowing isn't just about learning the concepts, it's about practicing making those sounds yourself, training your mouth and your ear at the same time.
Awareness plus active practice. That's the formula for cracking the code of connected speech. It takes time, but it's doable.
Now, it's interesting because as we've been talking about the vocabulary and the pronunciation, grammar points have naturally come up. The material didn't really treat grammar as this separate, isolated thing.
No, and that's much more effective, isn't it? Learning grammar as it's actually used in context. We saw several patterns highlighted through the examples.
Like the imperative form used for instructions or requests.
Yeah, keep your eyes peeled, we mentioned. Or things like download the PDF. Even phrases like please welcome or let's welcome have that instructive or inviting function.
Right, and we saw different verb tenses in action. Simple present, she keeps. Simple past, she kept, he got. Present continuous, I'm heading out.
And present perfect, we've already announced. That one often connects a past action to the present time or suggests the time frame is ongoing.
Like the example we've already announced over 500 reforms, the announcing happened, but the impact continues, and maybe more are coming.
Exactly. Another really key point that kept cropping up was using gerunds, the ing form, after certain verbs or prepositions.
Oh, yeah. Like Taylor Swift's advice to avoid being cringe, or stop using subtitles, be worth watching.
And after prepositions. Being worried about failing, needing to reflect on getting feedback, Jim Carrey dreaming about being a 3-time winner.
And they contrasted dream about, which is often for sleep dreams, with dream of, which is more for aspirations like dream of speaking English fluently.
Right. And contrasting those gerunds with infinitives used for purpose, like head out to beat the traffic, seeing when to use ing and when to use to plus verb.
They also touched on adjectives versus nouns, like 2-time winner where two-time describes winner.
Versus saying, I watched it 2 times, where times is just a noun indicating frequency.
And that useful structure, there is no such thing as, meaning something doesn't exist. Like Oprah's quote, there is no such thing as failure.
Conditionals came up too. The second conditional for hypotheticals. If I won a third Golden Globe, I would stop this terrible search. Talking about unreal situations and noting could for possibility.
But maybe the biggest grammar takeaway, woven through everything, was the importance of prepositions that go with specific verbs or expressions.
Absolutely crucial. This trips up so many learners. The sources were full of them. Peeled for, still on for, nerd out on, stick around until, wash up for, lock up before, yammering on about, mouthing off to, load up on, classified as, get rid of, look back on, worry about, regarded as, judged as, reflect on, work on, get the scoop on, dream about off, fulfilled by.
Wow, that's a list. It really shows you have to learn the preposition with the verb. They're a package deal.
They really are. And other small but important things, like using pronouns it and that to refer back to whole ideas.
Like dished it out, where
Yeah.
it is the criticism. Or I respect that, where that refers to someone's determination.
And even slightly informal structures, like using these almost as an afterthought subject. But these are important, these awards.
Using over to talk about time frames or doing something during a period, over the next 5 years, over the weekend, discussing it over coffee.
And modal verbs expressing possibility or uncertainty, like might be deemed. It all shows that grammar isn't just abstract rules, it's the skeleton holding the language together. Noticing these patterns in real examples helps you build your own sentences correctly and understand native speakers better.
Yeah, it's seeing the architecture of English in action, not just memorizing blueprints.
Well put. And beyond the structure, the rules, the vocabulary, language is so tied up with culture, with humor, with deeper meanings. The analyses in the material really brought this out, especially looking at jokes and those celebrity speeches.
This is a really fun part of the analysis, unpacking the wordplay, especially the puns based on homophones, words that sound the same but mean different things. That's key to getting a lot of English humor.
Definitely. Like that joke about fried rice, playing on woke the cooking pan and walk the action. Don't walk away from me. Only funny if you know both meanings.
Or the computer needing rhythm to dance, playing on algorithm.
The pilot taking his sandwich plane, simple versus flying a plane aircraft.
The butter joke,
Yeah.
spreading butter versus spreading a rumor.
The haircut joke. Haircut the style versus literally finding a single hair that was cut.
And the prom night one, needing to call someone a name versus needing to call an ambulance. That one needs cultural context, too.
Absolutely. Understanding the jokes often requires knowing those multiple meanings and having some cultural background.
Like knowing the proverb crying over spilled milk, don't worry about small things, to get why Obama's joke about milk classified as oil was funny, twisting a common saying around a bureaucratic rule.
Or knowing the TV show Family Feud and the meaning of feud, a conflict, for the Steve Harvey joke.
Understanding prom night culture in North America, the big dance, protective dads, gives context to that ambulance joke.
Knowing Beyoncé's lyric, Who Run the World? Girls, and the double meaning of run, manage versus exercise, for the joke about women running the world, but maybe not jogging.
The spirit animal quiz joke ending with extinct, that plays on the quiz trend but adds an unexpected, slightly dark humor about age.
Even the joke about the 29th anniversary and the poll on unhappy marriages relies on understanding common tropes about long-term relationships and humor.
The material didn't just look at jokes, though. It offered really interesting insights by analyzing celebrity speeches, different voices, different styles, different messages about life.
Yeah, like President Obama's speech. It showed how even formal language uses natural pronunciation, like reductions and linking, and how humor can arise from contrasting official jargon, classified as oil, with everyday common sense spilled milk.
And Taylor Swift's speech, mixing very current slang like cringe with more formal words like retrospectively and deemed.
And her message, as interpreted by the source, was basically, embrace being awkward or embarrassing sometimes. Don't try so hard to avoid being cringe. It's part of life and learning.
Then Jim Carrey, just mastering sarcasm to poke fun at the whole idea of chasing fame and awards.
Right. Saying things like, 2-time Golden Globe winner Jim Carrey? Gonna get some well-needed shut-eye. Downplaying his success in a funny way. The audience gets it because that desire for validation is relatable.
And that final contradictory line, but these are important, these awards, after mocking the search for them. Classic Carrey irony.
Then you had Donald Trump using very direct colloquial language. I'll say this about Hillary. I tell it like it is, even in a more formal setting.
And his point about Hillary Clinton, what he admired, was her persistence. She doesn't quit, she doesn't give up.
Leading to his very straightforward advice, don't quit, don't give up. Simple, powerful message reinforced through an example he respected.
And finally, Oprah Winfrey, offering that really powerful reframing of failure.
There is no such thing as failure. Failure is just life trying to move us in another direction, using that there is no such thing as structure, effectively. Her core message, failure, as we usually think of it, doesn't really exist.
Looking at these different examples, the humor, the speeches, really shows how much richness there is in the language beyond just grammar and vocabulary. Understanding context, tone, cultural references, sarcasm, it adds so many layers.
And, hearing these different perspectives on persistence or embracing awkwardness or reframing challenges that can be genuinely motivating for anyone tackling something difficult, like learning a new language.
Wow, okay. We have really covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. It feels like we've gone from the nuts and bolts of shadowing
To a whole toolbox of practical vocabulary, those idioms and phrasal verbs.
then uncovering the secrets of how sounds actually work in fast, connected speech.
Tying in the grammar points as they appeared naturally.
And finally, exploring how culture, humor, and even personal philosophy shape the language we hear and use.
It's definitely been a journey through different layers of English. And a key theme across all the source material was really the importance of bringing these elements together.
Not keeping them in separate boxes.
Exactly. Mixing and matching the vocabulary, consciously trying to apply the pronunciation insights, and just practicing consistently. Shadowing, speaking out loud, using the phrases.
And that other recurring theme, don't be afraid of making mistakes. They're not failures, they're just part of the learning process.
Absolutely. The clear goal presented throughout was helping you become more fluent, more confident, and able to understand that fast, natural English much more easily.
It's clear that getting there involves technique, like shadowing, but also
You see the object, and the English label is the immediate mental response.
you're building that direct visual word association.
Precisely. You're wiring your brain to connect the image of the object directly to the English word for it. Every object you mentally label throughout your day is a tiny repetition, a low-level reinforcement.
So you do this consistently, like walking down the street, sitting somewhere.
Your walk to work, sitting in a cafe, looking around your living room. Every object is an opportunity for a mini mental English drill. It just becomes a background habit.
Okay, so it's about building that foundational layer of direct association for concrete things. What's the next step up from there?
From static objects to dynamic actions. The sources highlight describing simple actions internally as you perform them throughout your day.
Connecting language to movement and activity.
Right.
Makes sense.
Exactly. As you go about your daily routine, mentally narrate what you're doing using simple English phrases. The material gives examples like, I am walking.
I am opening the door.
I am brushing my teeth. I am boiling water. Things like that.
Or, as you mentioned, your morning routine is a perfect place to start this. It's usually the same sequence of actions every day, right?
Absolutely. It's predictable. So waking up, you think, I wake up, I open my eyes, I stretch.
I sit up, I get out of bed, I walk to the kitchen.
I make coffee, I pour the water. Connecting the English phrase directly to the physical movement helps wire that association deep into your brain.
So it starts making English the natural language for processing your own physical experience.
That's the idea.
Okay, so we're training our brain to link English directly to the external world, objects, and actions. But what about the internal world? The constant stream of thoughts, ideas, plans, worries, that inner dialogue that's almost certainly happening in your native language right now.
Ah, yes. This is where the sources say the real magic happens, and maybe where it can feel a bit more challenging initially. You're right, that inner voice is a deeply ingrained habit.
So how do you persuade that inner voice to start speaking English instead? That sounds tricky.
It requires active, conscious training. The sources suggest starting small and treating it like a quiet, internal conversation with yourself.
Like asking yourself simple questions in English.
Exactly. When you have a moment of quiet, internally ask yourself things you'd normally think about anyway. What should I have for lunch today?
And then answer yourself in English. Maybe I'll have a salad. Or I can make soup.
Or thinking about your plans for the day. What do I need to do this afternoon?
Okay, I need to send that email first. Then call the bank.
These internal Q&As are like mini workouts for your inner English voice. You're practicing formulating complete, albeit simple thoughts directly in English. It starts building fluency not just in speaking, but in thinking.
That makes a lot of sense. Start with small, simple internal conversations. Then the sources suggest dedicating specific blocks of time just for this, right?
Yes, this is the structured thinking time technique. It's about consciously setting aside a period each day, maybe starting with just 10 or 15 minutes with one specific goal.
And that goal is to consciously try to frame all thoughts during that thoughting. Plans, observations, feelings, whatever pops into your head in English.
That's the intention. You're deliberately telling your brain, okay, for the next 15 minutes, we're operating in English. You consciously redirect your thinking into English for that focused period.
But I can already hear listeners thinking, I'm going to slip back into my native language constantly. It's going to feel impossible. That's what I'd be thinking.
And you absolutely will. The sources are incredibly realistic and, well, kind about this. This isn't about instant perfection. Slipping back is not a failure.
Okay, that's reassuring.
The training is actually in the noticing and the redirecting. You simply notice, okay, I switched back, and then calmly, gently redirect your focus. Let me try to think that in English again.
So it's about building awareness and the habit of returning to English, not about somehow never leaving it in the first place.
Exactly. It's like catching yourself drifting and just guiding your thoughts back onto the English path.
And then you gradually increase the time allocated.
That's right. As 15 minutes gets easier, maybe you push to 20, then 30. The long-term goal is for English to become the default language for more and more of your internal processing. But as the sources emphasize, this is definitely a marathon, not a sprint.
Absolutely. And to build this internal world, you obviously need the vocabulary. But it's not just about memorizing lists, is it? The sources stress something else.
That's a key point. Vocabulary is crucial, it's the building material, but its real value is in active use, not just passive knowledge stored away somewhere.
You need to be able to pull it out spontaneously in your thoughts.
Right, so when you learn a new word, the sources suggest immediately trying to use it in sentences in your mind. Don't just learn the translation, learn how it feels and sounds in a sentence.
So if you learn the word exhilarating,
Don't just think exhilarating your native word. Think that roller coaster ride was exhilarating. Or maybe learning a new skill can feel exhilarating.
and mentally repeat that sentence or phrase a few times.
Yes. Connect the word to the feeling, the context, the mental image. That's how you internalize it, making it part of your active thinking vocabulary, ready to be accessed spontaneously when you need it.
Okay. The sources also find value in organizing vocabulary practice by categories, right? How does that help with thinking directly?
It kind of mirrors how our brains often store and retrieve information in related groups or networks. Think about kitchen items,
Yeah.
spoon, fork, knife, plate, bowl, cup, mug.
Right, they all belong together.
So if you learn these together, you can then mentally list them. Spoon, fork, knife, and then take the next step. Make simple sentences using them in your head. I need a clean spoon. Where's my favorite mug?
Or clothing,
Hmm.
shirt, pants, socks, jacket, hat. Mentally list them, then think, I need to buy new socks. It's cold. I should wear a jacket.
It helps create a mental network of related words, making them much more accessible when you need them in a spontaneous thought or description. You're essentially building mini databases in English that are easy to access quickly.
Okay, so we're building the foundation with objects, actions, inner chat, structured time, and this active vocabulary practice. What about processing English that's coming at you, like when you're watching a video or listening to something like this?
Yeah. The sources highlight this as a critical opportunity for internal practice. The mistake many learners make is just consuming passively, sort of hoping it sinks in by osmosis.
Which doesn't really work that well.
Not for this kind of active thinking skill. The key is active processing.
And the central technique they suggest for this is to pause occasionally and actively summarize what you just heard or watched.
In English. In your own words, internally. This forces your brain to actually process and then reformulate the information using English.
So if I'm watching, say, a documentary, I might pause it every few minutes and mentally think, okay, the speaker just explained the history of this issue. They said it started back in year because of reason, sort of narrating the key points to myself.
Exactly. You're taking the English input, analyzing it, and producing your own English output, even if it's only internal. You're actively working with the language at a much deeper level than just basic comprehension.
Reading is another massive source of input, obviously. books, articles, online content.
Incredibly powerful for this. The core advice here is to read for meaning and try to immerse yourself in the story or the information. Visualize what's happening. Don't try to translate word for word in your head.
And crucially, if you encounter a word you don't know, the sources are very clear. Resist that immediate urge to grab a dictionary or translator.
Yes. Try to guess the meaning first from the surrounding words, from the context. What kind of word would make sense here?
Why is that so important?
Because every time you stop to translate a single word, you break the flow of English thinking. You switch your brain out of English mode and back into translation mode. Guessing from context keeps your brain operating continuously in English.
Keeps the English engine running smoothly.
I got it.
The sources also connect reading or observation to a practical visualization technique.
Oh, the guided visualization exercise. It's really great for solidifying those direct links we talked about. If you're somewhere quiet now, you can even try it briefly with us. Maybe close your eyes for just a moment.
Okay, eyes closed. I'm ready.
All right. Imagine yourself walking into a familiar space, maybe your kitchen, your bedroom, a favorite park. Now, mentally, using only English, start naming the objects you see in your mind's eye.
Okay, there's a table, chairs, a window, a plant.
Good. Now add simple descriptions or actions, just quick ones.
The table is made of wood. The chairs are blue. The sun is coming through the window. I walk towards the plant.
Perfect. This kind of mental walkthrough, visually placing yourself in a space and immediately labeling and describing it in English, builds really strong, direct associations. You're training your brain to process your environment using English as the primary lens.
That feels very concrete and practical. It's not just abstract language floating around. It's tied directly to your reality. And it's not just the physical world either. The sources emphasize expressing your internal state too, right? Your feelings.
Absolutely vital. Fluency isn't only about describing the external world. It's about expressing your emotions, your feelings, your opinions. The sources encourage practicing putting these internal states into simple English words internally.
Like just thinking, I feel happy today, or I'm a bit tired.
That news made me angry. I'm excited about the weekend. Learning to identify and articulate your feelings directly in English is a huge step towards making the language feel truly yours, making it feel capable of expressing the whole range of your internal experience.
Okay, so we're building this internal English world step by step. How do we then bridge that internal practice to actually interacting with other people? The sources highlight simulating real-life interactions.
Yes, this is a really powerful technique mentioned across the material, mentally preparing for conversations by running through potential scenarios in your head beforehand.
Like the classic cafe example they often use.
Exactly. Before you go to a cafe or even just imagining it, mentally walk through the steps in English. Okay, I'm going into the cafe. I need to order. What do I want? A coffee. Okay, I'll ask for a large latte.
And then maybe rehearse the potential mini conversation in your head.
Right. Hello, can I have a large latte, please? Anticipate the response. To stay or to go? And think your answer. To go, please.
So you're anticipating the language needed for a specific situation?
Precisely. You can do this for countless scenarios. Shopping, asking for directions, meeting a friend, a job interview even. The more you mentally run through these interactions, rehearsing phrases and anticipating responses, the more readily that English becomes available in the actual moment.
It builds a kind of conversational muscle memory in your brain. It's a great way to put it.
Yeah, it really is.
And they suggest carrying this simulation into real interactions too, trying to stay in English mode internally.
Yes, aiming to keep your internal dialogue in English, not just before a conversation, but during it as well.
So as I'm listening to someone speak, I'm trying to process what they're saying and formulate my response in English in my head simultaneously without mentally translating.
That's the goal. You're trying to prevent that detour back to your native language. It's definitely challenging, especially at first, but the more you try, the faster your brain gets at thinking on its feet in English.
And importantly, the sources say to reflect after the conversation, using English internally again.
Yes, this is crucial for learning and improvement. Mentally replay the conversation. Ask yourself, how did that go? What did they say exactly? What did I say? What words did I struggle with? What could I have said better?
So you're using the real-life experience as an immediate training opportunity.
Exactly. You're immediately reinforcing what worked and identifying areas for improvement, all within the English framework you're trying to build.
Okay, we've covered internal thought, processing input, and simulating interaction. What about the bridge to actual speaking? The sources strongly recommend something called mirror talk.
Ah, yes, talking to yourself in the mirror. It might feel a little strange at first, I admit.
Yeah, maybe a bit awkward.
Perhaps. But the sources consistently say it's incredibly effective for bridging that gap between internal thought and external speech. Start really simple. Just say hello to yourself in the mirror.
Hi, how you doing today? Something like that. Yeah.
And then answer yourself. Talk about your day. Well, I had a busy morning. I finished that report I was working on. Now I'm feeling a bit tired. As you get more comfortable, you can talk about opinions, future plans, or describe something you see.
What's the main benefit of doing it in front of a mirror specifically?
It builds confidence speaking English aloud without the pressure of having a real listener judging you. You get comfortable hearing your own voice producing English sounds. You can also focus consciously on your pronunciation, your mouth movements, your intonation.
So it helps your brain and your mouth work together more directly.
Yes, taking the English thoughts you're cultivating and turning them into spoken words more smoothly, more naturally. It makes the physical act of speaking feel less foreign.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's talk about reinforcing all this practice. The sources have some really good techniques for solidifying the learning and making it stick. Daily reflection is one they mention.
Yes, ending your day by mentally reviewing what happened, but doing it specifically in English.
So just mentally walk through the day's main events. Woke up at 7, had breakfast, checked emails, went to a meeting at 10. It was interesting.
Ate lunch with friend's name. We talked about topic, came home, made dinner pasta again, read a book for an hour. Now I'm getting ready for bed.
You're linking your real-life experiences and memories directly to English description and sequencing.
It's powerful reinforcement. You're applying the language to your actual life.
Journaling is a related technique mentioned, but obviously in written form.
Absolutely. Writing down your thoughts, feelings, daily events in English. And crucially, just like with internal thinking, the sources say don't let grammar paralysis stop you initially.
Just get the thoughts out onto the page.
Yes. The primary goal here is training your thoughts to flow in English. Put them down on paper or on screen, even if it's just simple sentences at first. Feeling good today, sunny outside, need coffee.
How does writing help differently than just thinking it internally?
Well, it forces a slightly slower, more deliberate process than just internal thought. You see the English words visually, which provides reinforcement. And being able to look back over time and see your progress, seeing your thoughts actually taking shape on the page in English can be incredibly motivating.
That's true. Seeing progress written down is powerful.
What about recalling past events, like telling stories to yourself?
Another excellent technique the sources mention for building narrative fluency. Pick a memory, maybe a vacation, a birthday party, a memorable day at work, and try to recount it internally, or maybe write it in your journal in English.
Like describing a past trip. Okay, last summer I went to the beach with my family. We drove for about 3 hours. The weather was perfect, really warm and sunny. We built sand castles and swam in the ocean. I remember feeling very happy and relaxed.
Exactly. You're practicing describing scenes, sequencing events, using past tenses, connecting feelings to experiences, all within the English framework. It helps your brain build the structures needed to tell a coherent story or recount an experience directly in English without translating first. Okay, switching gears slightly, the sources suggest some more active, almost game-like techniques to keep practice engaging and maybe less like homework.
Yes, making it feel less like work and more like play is always good for motivation. The category game is a simple, fun one they mention.
How does that work exactly?
You just pick a category, anything animals, food, furniture, emotions, jobs. Then mentally or even quickly jotting them down, list as many items in that category as you can think of in English.
Okay, animals. Dog, cat, bird, fish, elephant, lion, tiger.
Right. Then you can take it a step further and make quick, simple sentences about a few of them in your head. The dog is barking. I saw a small bird in the tree.
Or food. Apple, banana, bread, cheese, pasta, rice. Think, I ate an apple for a snack. I really love cheese.
It's all about rapid recall of vocabulary and immediate, simple application. It connects the word to its meaning and basic usage very quickly. It's a great mental agility drill for your English brain.
Music is another rich area mentioned. If you enjoy listening to English songs, don't just listen passively.
Right. Pay attention to the lyrics and then try to understand the meaning. The sources suggest taking a line or maybe a verse and mentally explaining what you think it means in your own words in English.
So if a song has a line about feeling lost, you might think internally, okay, This line probably means the singer feels confused, maybe uncertain about their direction in life, and doesn't know what to do next.
Exactly. You're processing the metaphorical language, the emotional content, the deeper message, not just the surface words. It helps you connect with English on an emotional and interpretive level, which is really key to making it feel like a language for expressing complex thoughts and feelings, not just basic facts.
Then there's shadowing, which the sources often call particularly powerful for improving speaking fluency and pronunciation.
It really is. The idea is you listen to a short piece of spoken English, maybe a sentence from a podcast like this, a line from a movie, a phrase from a song. Then you immediately repeat it aloud, trying to mimic the speaker's pronunciation, rhythm, and intonation as closely as possible.
So you're almost speaking along with them or right after them.
Or pausing and repeating right after you hear it. Hear someone say, "What are you doing?" and immediately repeat, "What are you doing?" Focusing on sounding like the original speaker. Then maybe try saying it again from memory.
What's the core benefit here specifically for thinking in English beyond just pronunciation?
It trains your brain and your mouth to work together seamlessly to produce natural-sounding English quickly. It helps you move from the thought of saying something to the physical act of saying it with the correct rhythm and flow, bypassing some of that hesitation. It strengthens the bridge between your internal English thinking and your external English speech.
Okay, let's address a very common, often frustrating challenge. What happens when you're trying to think or maybe speak in English, perhaps describing something, and you completely blank on a specific word? You know what you want to say conceptually, but the English word just isn't there.
Oh, it happens to everyone, even native speakers sometimes. The crucial advice from the sources here is do not immediately give up and switch back to your native language to find that word or look it up.
Right, because that breaks the English flow we're trying to build. So what do you do instead?
Circumlocution. That's the key technique. Try to describe the word or concept using other English words that you do know. Talk around it.
Like the classic example of forgetting the word scissors, you'd think, or say, it's a tool. You use it to cut paper or fabric. It has two blades and handles you put your fingers in.
Exactly. You talk around the word. This keeps your thought process entirely in English. You don't break the immersion. Plus, it actually trains your brain to stay in the English zone and find creative ways to express yourself even when your vocabulary feels limited in the moment. It's a really valuable communication skill in itself, not just a workaround.
Keep that English engine running. Find another route. That makes sense. Another real-time practice they suggest is actively describing the scenes around you.
Yes, this is great for sharpening your observation skills and practicing descriptive language on the fly. If you're sitting on a bus, waiting in a queue in a park, or even just looking around your room, start mentally describing what you see.
Start simple again, maybe. There's a tree. Then add detail. The tree is tall. It has green leaves. Some leaves are turning yellow.
There are people walking by. Some are carrying bags. A man is walking a dog. The sky is cloudy today. Just constantly observing and mentally labeling and describing your environment in English trains your brain to process the world directly through the language. It makes you quicker at accessing descriptive vocabulary when you need it.
And to keep all this practice fresh and prevent boredom, which is a real risk, the sources suggest introducing daily thinking challenges.
Yes, giving yourself a small, specific task for your English thinking time each day. It adds variety and focuses your effort, stops it feeling too random.
Like, okay, today, my challenge is to describe my living room in as much detail as possible in English, just in my head.
Or, today, I will mentally summarize the plot of the last book I read in English. Or maybe, explain the steps for how to make my favorite dish.
It works different mental muscles each time. Prevents it from becoming monotonous, like doing the same exercise every day.
Exactly. And they also talk about using those little pockets of in-between moments, that downtime we all have, for casual English thoughts.
Those times when your brain isn't intensely focused on something else, like when you're washing dishes, waiting in line at the store, commuting.
Instead of just letting your mind drift automatically in your native language, gently guide it towards English. Just simple, low-pressure thoughts, nothing strenuous.
I wonder if the store has that brand of coffee today. The weather looks nice. Maybe I'll go for a walk later this afternoon. What should I watch on TV tonight?
Just letting your casual musings happen in English. It keeps the language active in your mind throughout the day without feeling like a dedicated, effortful chore. Every little bit helps maintain the momentum.
There's also a really simple environmental change the sources recommend that provides constant subtle reinforcement without you even thinking about it.
Yes. Changing the language setting on your electronic devices to English. Your phone, your computer, your tablet.
Oh yeah, I did that. Suddenly everything is in English. All the settings, the menus, the notifications you get.
It forces you to constantly process English words in a functional, real-world context. You just
Hmm.
get used to seeing them and understanding them without consciously translating. It helps make English feel like a default part of your digital environment, which subtly reinforces it as a default part of your mental environment, too.
Now we have to acknowledge, this isn't always going to be easy sailing. There will definitely be days where you feel resistant or tired or just completely stuck and frustrated.
Absolutely. The sources are very clear about this. Progress is almost never a straight line up. There will be plateaus, maybe even days where it feels like you're going backwards. That's normal.
So what's the advice for navigating those moments when it just feels too hard or like you're not getting anywhere?
The main thing is, don't force it aggressively. Don't beat yourself up about it. Just gently acknowledge the feeling. Think, okay, my brain is feeling tired today. Or, it feels difficult to think in English right now.
And then maybe gently try again later. Or switch to an easier technique for a bit.
Exactly. Maybe just go back to simple object naming for 5 minutes just to get back into the English flow without the pressure of constructing complex thoughts. Or, and this is a great tip from the sources, deliberately switch to thinking about something fun.
Ah, change the subject in your head.
Yes.
Ah,
If the work topics or describing your day feel hard, shift your internal English chatter to something you genuinely enjoy thinking about. Your favorite hobby, a fun memory, planning a dream activity you'd love to do.
like thinking about your favorite food. Burgers. Oh man, I love a good burger. Juicy meat, crispy lettuce, melted cheese, maybe some bacon, all on a soft toasted bun.
Or that dream vacation you're saving up for. Imagine being in Paris, walking along the Seine River, seeing the Eiffel Tower sparkle at night, eating amazing croissants for breakfast.
Connecting English to pleasure and positive feelings.
Right. It can help refuel your motivation and make the language feel less like a chore and more like a tool for enjoyment and positive anticipation. It changes the association.
That's really smart. Okay, here's a big barrier the sources address that probably stops a lot of learners from even trying this internal practice consistently. Worrying intensely about making grammar mistakes when thinking in your head.
Oh, yeah, the internal grammar police. This is perhaps one of the most liberating insights from the sources, I think. When you are practicing your internal English thinking, especially in the early stages, the advice is clear. Do not worry about perfect grammar.
Really. Just let those mistakes happen internally. Don't correct yourself constantly in your head.
Yes. The primary goal of this specific training is fluency of thought, getting the ideas, the words, the simple phrases flowing directly in English. If you constantly stop and mentally correct every little grammatical error in your head, you'll completely block that flow. You'll choke the engine before it even gets started.
So if I think something like, he go to store yesterday, in my head, that's actually okay for this specific practice.
According to the sources, yes, in that moment of internal thought, let it go. Let the thought form in English, even if it's imperfect. The idea is that your brain will gradually absorb the correct grammatical patterns over time through exposure to correct English input from reading, listening, watching things.
So the input corrects the patterns over time, but the internal practice builds the habit of direct thinking first.
Exactly. Don't let the pursuit of perfect grammar in your head become the enemy of simply thinking in English in the first place. Keep the channel open, let it flow. Refinement comes later, and largely from input.
That's a huge relief for anyone trying this, I bet. Focus on the flow first. Okay, the sources also suggest connecting this practice directly to your personal goals. How does that work?
This is a powerful way to make the language feel really relevant and motivating. Spend some time each day or maybe each week consciously thinking about your goals, your daily goals, your short-term goals, or even your big life aspirations in English.
Like thinking, okay, today my main goal is to finish writing this important email. And I want to make sure I use those 3 new vocabulary words I learned. My bigger goal this year is to get a new job in an international company where I can use English.
Precisely. Thinking about your goals in English links the language directly to your ambitions, your future, your personal growth. It makes English feel like a tool for achieving what actually matters to you, not just some abstract subject you're learning in a classroom. It builds a much deeper, more personal connection to the language.
That makes it more meaningful. Another specific mental exercise mentioned in the sources involves describing things with more detail, sort of leveling up from basic naming.
Yes, building on that simple object naming we started with. Pick an object near you, maybe your computer mouse again. Now, mentally describe it using more specific, descriptive English words. Go beyond just mouse.
Okay, let's try. This is my computer mouse. It's black, mostly matte black. It's wireless, which is convenient. It has two main buttons and a scroll wheel in the middle that clicks. It fits quite comfortably in my right hand. Oh, and it's actually a gaming mouse, so it has some colored lights that change.
Perfect. See. You're training your brain to access not just the basic label, mouse, but the descriptive adjectives, black, matte, wireless, comfortable, colored, the specific nouns for parts, buttons, scroll wheel, maybe even adverbs, conveniently, comfortably. It upgrades your internal descriptive abilities and expands your active vocabulary for more nuanced thought.
The sources also talk about essentially creating an inner commentator or coach, narrating your actions.
Yes, turning that inner voice into a kind of running commentary of what you're doing as you go through simple everyday tasks.
So, as I'm cooking dinner, I'm mentally narrating. Okay, first, I'm chopping the onion. Need to be careful with the knife. Now I'm heating the pan. Okay, adding some olive oil. Then I put in the chicken pieces to brown them.
Just a constant low-level narration of your physical actions. It continuously associates English with your lived moment-to-moment experience, helping English feel like the default language for simply experiencing your own life. It makes it feel much more natural and ever-present, less like something you switch on only for English time.
But again, if that feels like too much work sometimes or a bit intense, the sources suggest a final, very positive visualization technique to use English purely for enjoyment.
Right. Ending a practice session or perhaps your day by visualizing your perfect day or a really happy scenario and narrating it all in English in your head,
Uh,
focusing on the positive.
like thinking, okay, my perfect day. I wake up feeling amazing, really refreshed. The sun is shining brightly. I go for a beautiful long walk by the beach, listening to the waves. Then I meet my best friends for a delicious brunch outside. We laugh a lot.
In the afternoon, maybe I work on a creative project I really love, feeling inspired. In the evening, I relax at home with my family. We watch a funny movie together. I feel peaceful and completely content. Using English to imagine positive, fulfilling experiences.
What's the benefit there?
It helps your brain associate the language with joy, relaxation, happiness, and fulfillment. It makes your mind more receptive to thinking in English naturally because it connects it to good feelings.
So as we bring all these threads together from this deep dive, I mean, we've covered a lot. From naming simple objects and actions, to training your inner voice, processing input, simulating conversations, dealing with difficulties, and even visualizing dreams. What's the overarching message from the sources about actually making this happen, making the shift?
I think it boils down to three things, consistently emphasized: patience, consistency, and celebrating the small wins along the way. These are absolutely paramount.
You really must celebrate the small steps forward, shouldn't you?
Absolutely. Thinking one complete sentence without translating, that's a genuine achievement. Pat yourself on the back mentally, remembering a specific word you needed right when you needed it. High five yourself. Managing 5 minutes of dedicated English thinking time when you only planned for 2, that's fantastic progress.
Acknowledge that progress. Be encouraging to yourself.
Your brain responds incredibly well to positive reinforcement. Be your own best coach, your own cheerleader, not your harshest critic. That negative self-talk can really derail progress.
And perhaps the most important message, the one that underlies all the techniques, is about consistency over perfection.
Without a doubt, you don't need to do all 20 plus of these techniques perfectly or even all of them every single day. The key is to show up regularly, consistently. Even short, focused practice sessions add up dramatically over time. That's how you build this mental muscle bit by bit.
And the ultimate promise, the payoff that makes all this deliberate effort worthwhile, your brain will adapt. It's designed to. English will gradually transform from feeling like this foreign code you have to constantly decipher and translate.
To just becoming a natural way you think, an integral part of your internal world, operating alongside your native language, or even taking the lead in certain contexts.
That internal shift, that ability to think directly in another language, it must feel incredibly liberating.
It really is. And as the sources touch upon, it doesn't just improve your language skills in isolation. It genuinely opens doors. Doors to new ways of thinking, different cultural perspectives, access to vast amounts of information, new career opportunities, deeper connections with people from different backgrounds. It changes your internal landscape in a really profound way.
It really does sound like a fundamental shift. We've covered a remarkable amount today, a whole toolkit of techniques, really, from the simplest naming exercises right through to complex simulations and visualizations.
And the core message running through all of them remains. It takes deliberate practice, consistency, and a good dose of patience. But the ability to think directly in English is absolutely within your reach. It's a skill you can develop, not just something you're born with or without.
And feeling that moment when a thought just effortlessly arises in English, without the translation detour, that must be incredibly validating and empowering.
Absolutely. It transforms your entire experience with the language, making it feel less like an external object and more like a part of you.
Which brings us to the final provocative thought that the sources leave us with, something to really ponder after this deep dive. If you can intentionally train your brain to fundamentally change something as deeply ingrained as how it processes language and thought,
Then what else could you potentially train your brain to do? What other foundational aspects of your thinking, your habits, maybe even your perceptions of the world could you consciously reshape and improve through deliberate, consistent practice using similar principles?
the real power explored here isn't just about learning English, though that's huge. It's about recognizing and harnessing your mind's incredible capacity for adaptation, for neuroplasticity, for rewiring itself, for learning entirely new ways of operating.
It's quite profound when you think about it that way.
So the question for you listening now becomes, what will you train your brain to do next? Pick one or two of these English thinking techniques that resonated with you. Start small today, be consistent, be patient with yourself, and just see what happens. The potential is definitely there.